All right. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself, your name, where you live and work?
I'm Christine DeVivier, and I live and work in Wellesley, Massachusetts, just outside of Boston.
Right, right. And what do you do?
Well, I am a positive change speaker, leader, and mentor.
Yeah, yeah. And what does that mean?
So it began actually in business,
Yeah.
and I began working with executives that were, first actually myself, leading positive change
Yeah.
in a very large corporation, and then ending up consulting with other executives and mentoring other executives or coaching other executives as they were trying to lead large-scale positive changes.
Yeah.
And then more recently, my research took me in the direction of looking at the next generation of leaders, which is today's students.
Yeah.
And so that's actually led me to be giving talks and actually working with either families or students as they're looking at, how they're coming through the system and where they're going.
Right, right. And what's your background for doing all of this?
I have an MBA from Cornell, so that's where I started, was in business with an MBA. And as I said, then I had a nice career in business, and I led some very large changes in business, and I loved that. That was the work that I loved. So then I decided to do that kind of work full time, which meant being a consultant, and I began doing that with other companies and with executives. And as a result of that, actually, I got asked to coach an executive who was being promoted into a new role, leading a big change in a company. And so that's what took me from there. And while I've been doing this consulting work, I went back to school for a master's in positive psychology at University of Pennsylvania.
Right, right.
And so I was bringing positive psychology into my work with businesses and with executives. And I've done that. But while I was in school, there was actually a tragedy with a boy that I know, an 18-year-old.
Right.
And so as a result of that, I threw away the research. I'd done a lot of research on business and motivation for adults. And so I threw that away. And I ended up looking at gifts and strengths in students who are not in the top of the class.
Right, right.
And that led me to define some myths about education. And because of my business background, of course, I can look at what are the possibilities for them in the future, and what does it mean in terms of real world leadership. And what I realized was there were just these untapped gifts and strengths in kids that we kind of write off and say, they're not important. So that's led me in this new direction.
Right, right, right. And how did you get into coaching? Like, was that from doing it, like you explained, or did you take some training, or?
Yeah, so, well, first of all, I've been a coach just even of teams. So right off the bat, there was that. And I actually, like when I was a basketball coach, I got videos from John Wooden and all these like major coaches and learned from them. But I think it's something that came fairly naturally to me in the beginning.